I think that one of the things that will be really interesting to watch is the Supreme Court fight. I think that Democrats have a really interesting choice. And I understand, arguments on both sides. Hey, on some level, this is sort of like a normal conservative justice. They're in the majority. What are we going to do? We have vulnerable members. Let's keep our powder dry. I understand on the other side saying, look, we need to harness all this energy. We need to make a point that this court seat was stolen, and we're going to fight as hard as we can and, make sure that our base is energized. So I understand that, but I think that that'll be a pretty early indicator, I think, of, how the party is going to deal with this and how much Republicans will stand behind Trump and then what that means for them and for their base and for the Republican Party, if it helps them or hurts them. And I definitely see a lot of clashing and a lot of intrigue. And I think on some level, I think the question is whether or not Republicans simply stay behind Donald Trump for 4 years or whether or not some of them start to buckle or cave, depending on what he does.
Boy, I think you're absolutely right that this Neil Gorsuch vote, his nominee to the Supreme Court, is a critical test for Democrats, and I hear that same argument on the part of some of my friends that we have to pick our battles, and this guy's a pretty good guy, and so we ought to do the right thing, have the process, let him go, and then get organized for the next one, and that's where we take a stand, which I think is suicidal. I mean, because we got all this pent-up energy right now. Just speaking as a lefty and as a Democrat and as a progressive, that we saw at the Women's March in Washington, and people are looking for some place to really make an impact. And I also think the idea that we'd be stronger 2 years or a year from now, whatever, for the next one. And meanwhile, you've got another conservative to take the court to the right. For all those reasons, I think take a stand now. May not win, but take a stand now.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that they won't win, but I think that the idea is that it's you lose the battle, but you win the war. I think that you have to go in assuming that they will, end the filibuster. Although they might not. I mean, I think what's really interesting is that it's really I mean, if I was a strategist, for example, I don't know if I would say you should or shouldn't wage this battle because we think the outcome will be this, because nothing has turned out exactly as we thought, and so I don't know how much you can guide your actions based on where you would generally presume people will come down. So I think it'll be really interesting to watch. And I think the other thing too is Neil Gorsuch will have hearings. He will testify. And if you watch this this immigration refugee travel ban moving up in the courts, and then you have Neil Gorsuch in parallel step moving toward the Supreme Court. I mean, you have to ask this guy what he makes of this and what he makes of executive power and what he makes of immigration and what he makes of the court rulings on Obama's immigration order, which seemed to limit the president's power in this field. And so, he has to be asked all of those questions, and that will just be another arena in which this plays out, and it'll be really fascinating.